Good morning. I'd just like to add my welcome to you all. Particularly, I know a lot of you have come from quite far afield. And if you haven't been across to the main library building, I would encourage you to go. We have exhibitions on and quite a lot of interesting things to see. And also, I'm inordinately proud of a railway station that's next door here. Now, for those of you who haven't been, I normally don't sell railway stations, that's not my job. We have transformed a building that was created in 1873, which used to be a really dark, dingy, dirty place that I remember using when I was a student at going up to Sheffield University. And it's been completely transformed and it's a beautiful station. So I would strongly recommend, if you haven't been before, to take a little trip, and it's just next door. You'll be able to find it, I'm sure. So thank you to the organisers for allowing me to do a keynote. I don't normally do keynotes, so forward, that's good. So hold on to your hats, as they say. I think a lot of these thoughts that I'm going to share with you today are really my own, so don't hold the British Library responsible. So to start with, Impact is a fantastic project. We are always looking for projects like this. Multiple partners across Europe working together on a common problem, developing technology, piloting systems, and working in an area where lots of national libraries and other libraries as well throughout Europe are creating huge volumes of digitized content and really have to do something with it. So what I would say is that, and maybe I can finish here, is that this is a fantastic project. And I'm really pleased that so many of you have come today, and I'm really pleased that people have worked together. And as with every project, I'm sure there have been bumps in the road and issues along the way, but moving the state-of-the-art of OCR, text mining, and other technologies forward is really critical to libraries as we go more and more digital. And so I think it will actually benefit the citizens of Europe for many years to come. So as I say, I think I could finish here, but I do have a few more slides you might be pleased to hear. And I am going to talk about my views really on where we are with print digitization, OCR apps, and the future and stuff like that. So to start with, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the British Library. We have worked quite hard over the last couple of years on developing a vision for our future. The core of that vision is very digital in nature. And while we have huge and fantastic physical collections of all types, newspapers, books, maps, I'm sure the same as many other national libraries in Europe, increasingly we are trying to both digitize those and make them much more accessible to the populations. So we claim we have 150 million items. We receive a copy of every item through legal deposit that's published in the UK, and we're used by 16,000 people a day. And certainly if you go across the main building, you'll see all those people coming and going. It's really nice to see the place being used as much as it is. So this is our 2020 mission and vision, and it's gone ahead without me. Slow down. Which I noticed we put in the packs, so you have no excuse for not for looking at it. And our mission is advancing the world's knowledge. So what we see as important for us is facilitating the process of research and knowledge sharing. That's kind of where we are. That's our core belief. And within that, we have created these 5 strategic priorities down the side here. And I think that the Impact project, you see it's working now, it's good. Oh, it's going to go off again here. Has a role to play in each one of those 5 separate priorities. As you can see, they're all flicking past, so I can't really talk to them too much. Oh, we're going ahead even further. Slow down. So the Impact Project is key to lots of the different things we're doing strategically at the library, helping users gain access to our content, enriching our collections, providing deeper cultural understanding of the content we have, and those things. So to talk about our physical collections for a moment, as I said, we have around 150 million items in the collection. We estimate we have around 5 billion physical pages, which is obviously quite a lot. And so if you do the arithmetic, that means that each item roughly has 33 pages. Not, of course, that it works like that, because obviously we have books that are very long and lots of pages, and newspapers which have fewer pages, and we also have single page items as well. But on average, it's 33 pages per item. So back in 2006, CENL, the Conference of European National Libraries, did a survey, which I'm going to refer to a couple of times in this presentation, about digitization of the national libraries, only of the national libraries. And they basically found in that survey that all national libraries combined in Europe had around 400 million items. Now, I'm sure that number has increased over time, but it's a good starting point, I think, to think about the size of what is possible in terms of digitization and the huge collections that the national libraries in Europe have. And so if I do my simplistic mathematics, then that would say, if we use the 33 number, there's about 13 billion pages there to digitize. So I think we're a long, long way away from digitize 13 billion pages, but it's a fantastic amount of content. Okay, I'm preaching to the converted, I know, but some of my colleagues talk about digitalization, and I say no, it's not digitalization, it's digitization. So we have, just to get our terminology right here, we have born digital content, which I think of as things like e-journals or web archives or e-books, and then we digitize physical collections by taking images of them and turn them into mountains of images, basically, and then not digitalization, which is about digitalis. Okay, so digitization, which is what I'm going to talk about, not digitalis. We have digitized around 57 million objects in our collection. I use the term objects advisedly because when we get into digitization, there's talk about images and items and all those kinds of things. And I think actually tracking down what we've done, I think, is quite difficult sometimes. But basically, we have 57 million things that we have got in our collection, which represents about 1% of our physical collection. So we have a lot more potential to digitize. But even 57 million items is a huge quantity of content. And right now we have fairly specialized applications that enable you to see some of that content, and some of it you can't even see, it's not online. So there's a huge scope for, okay, you've got the images, what are we going to do with them next? We also have an ongoing project at the moment with a company called Bright Solid, who are digitizing 40 million pages of our newspapers, up to 40 million pages of our newspaper content. That sounds great, except for the fact that we have 750 million pages of newspapers, so that will certainly add to that collection. And then we've just recently signed a Google deal to digitize around 250,000 of our books, which we think will create about 80 million pages. Again, we have in the physical collection around 15 million books, so quite a ways to go there as well. I am going to talk quite a bit about cost through this presentation, because I think economics, particularly at the moment, are kind of important. When we started doing digitization, we focused, like I'm sure a lot of you did, on the sort of iconic items, the precious things, our Gutenberg Bibles, our Magna Carta, and those kinds of things. And when we digitized those, we took extreme care, and obviously it cost us quite a lot to digitize each of those individual items. However, as time has gone by and we have turned our attention more to mass digitization, the cost per image has declined, but it's still relatively expensive. If you look sort of end-to-end project costs, it's still in the neighbourhood of about £1 a page, which remains pretty expensive, especially when you're talking about billions of pages as we are. And also, it's not just digitization, it's also storing it and managing it and all the rest of it. So again, doing a rough calculation, if we were to digitize everything in the library, that would end up being 50 petabytes of content. And we've been running a digital library program now here for about 5 years or so, and we have about 150 terabytes of content so far. So the scale of what we're taking on here, I think, is quite enormous, and we need to understand that and also understand the economics of that. Back to the CENL survey that I mentioned earlier, in 2006 they talked about 4.8 million items that is, being digitized across Europe in the national libraries, and the projection for 2012 was around 17 million items, which represented about 4% of the collections. So I think still at the early stages of this whole process, but I think also we've got quite a ways to go in terms of providing access and interfaces and tools to manipulate that content, which is what we're here today to talk about, really. Okay, OCR. I think a lot about OCR, and I'm delighted that we have Abby here today and have helped with the Impact project. And I really see it as the gateway to advanced digital functionality, in the sense that if you've just got a pile of images, you've just got a pile of images, and to turn them into real value, you have to do text mining and sophisticated navigation and linking and all these other tools and techniques, which you can't do unless you have a digital copy of the image. So, as we know, OCR works pretty well for some modern collections, but for older material, and part of the focus of the project has been around older material, there are issues. And there was a paper that I read around comparing OCR rates with bitonal versus grayscale images, where the researchers showed that actually the results with bitonal were better than the ones with grayscale. So I think there's a lot of work still to be done in OCR, particularly with tricky physical items like newspapers and other manuscript type content. Yeah. So also there was an article I read from National Library of Australia that talked about the quality of OCR, and I think that is going to become increasingly important as we provide applications to users. And I think if our accuracy levels are below 90-something%, I think people are going to reject it and not want to use our content. So getting the accuracy of OCR high, I think, is really, really important for the success of the processes we're all engaged in. So I'm going to talk very briefly about a few different types of applications. So I just present 4 types here. I think we have some ways to go to providing APIs, but increasingly I think we should provide APIs that other people can program to gain access to our collections. And we are starting a project here at the library to do just that, so that third parties can develop applications to access our content. Clearly being able to do basic search across the content that we've digitized is really important. But we've also done quite a lot of work, as I know lots of other libraries and organizations have done, to create specialized applications using techniques like text analysis, text mining, and image comparison. And the example there is around a project we did with digitizing some of Shakespeare's quartos. And then, of course, social networking, mobile technologies, and lots of other things come into play as well. And I think that this side of the chart we have exploited less, and more of our focus is going on to what are the applications, what are the ways that we can deliver this content to the user community out there. Yeah, so one question is, do we need all these applications, and actually, are they really adding value for money? And what is the value for money proposition behind all this stuff? So, commercial break time. Showing you some of I think our successes. This is the Shakespeare Quarto comparison application I showed you. It's a very tailored, specific application around Shakespeare Quartos to allow researchers to compare different versions together at the same time. We had a couple of developers working on this for quite some time to make it work and look good. It's available on our website. It's a free application. I think it's very nice, but clearly not very scalable in terms of can you use this for other kinds of applications. We have done a number of projects around digitizing our newspaper collection. We're very lucky in the UK to have an organisation called JISC who have funded the digitization of quite a lot of our 19th century newspapers, about 4 million pages, and that content is available to search. Increasingly, though, we're doing these sorts of things, making digitized content like our 19th century book collection available on iPads and iPhones and all of that kind of stuff, and starting to look at fee-based services to generate some revenue, which is not always popular, as you can imagine, but as we know, digitization is a very expensive process, and this is a way we can recoup some money to generate some revenues. And we've just done another one on a project that's just coming, an exhibition that's just about to launch here at the library called The Royal, and we are launching a set of applications on an iPad, iPhone, Android. And again, these are fee-based services, and we are generating some revenue. We will be generating some revenue to help us with this process. Okay, so shown you the process of digitization going from physical item to image to OCR, and what kinds of applications we can create and generate revenue from. I also looked at this report, which is called Splashes and Ripples, which tries to look at the value of digitization projects. And it tried to create a fairly, well, it was a combination of both quantitative and qualitative analysis of a range of projects that JISC has funded over the last few years, examined about 12 projects. And they did a range of analysis and came up with access metrics, qualitative impact, and other statements about the value of these resources. Unfortunately, I didn't find much of it very definitive and very compelling in terms of, so what is it worth? How do you do the calculation for a digitization project will cost you €1 million? How do you then see the value? How is that calculation ever done? And I think we're in the very early stages of trying to figure these things out, but I think it's really important that we give these a lot of thought, because as funding gets harder and harder, we are going to have to justify where our money is going. So I thought, this is my sort of analysis, I thought I would do a print versus digital analysis to say, actually, although it's really hard to assess the value, if you compare print materials with digital, and some of this is a bit rhetorical, but because clearly we couldn't digitize if we didn't have the print to begin with, so the analysis may be slightly flawed from the get-go. But when I think through all the different aspects of print and digital collections, I have to say that I find digital winning all the time. Maybe that's because I'm the Director of e-Strategy at the British Library. So if I look at durability, yes, I mean the claim from our collection care people is that paper is very durable and it can last forever. That's true as long as it's not used too much. And particularly with newspaper collections, as a lot of you know, they're very fragile, and if you do use them a lot, they tend to break. We have quite a lot of our newspaper collection, which we don't allow people to see anymore because it's just too fragile. So it's nice to say it's durable, but actually it's not as durable as digital could potentially be, because clearly with digital you can make infinite number of copies, and as long as you get the IT right, you can keep it forever. So I think I call that a tie. On the look and feel, yes, physical item is the original item, so you're always going to say that's better than the old item. But it's only original in the sense that it was originally published. It goes yellow, it gets fragile. It's actually changing quite a lot over time. And I think some of the digital simulations that we have now for turning the pages, for viewing, for comparing things, are just as good as looking at the original item. Now, I know a lot of people would argue against that, but there you go. And then on the rest of them, I think it's clearly digital wins. Search, we can only use a catalogue for searching physical items, and catalogues are very expensive to put together. Clearly, if we have good OCR and we can do full text searching, digital wins every time. Distribution, well, distributing books through the post is not a very economic prospect, and clearly over the internet, it's much, much better in a digital world. Linking, mining, social networking, you know, I think all of these tools we have yet to fully exploit, and we really need to. But in print, it's not even possible. And then revenue, as I've shown, we are generating money from the outputs of our digitization projects. So we are generating revenue, and we're not generating revenue from the print. So again, I think digital wins. Digital wins, there you go. Okay, so my final few thoughts for you are that, as I said at the beginning, we have huge physical collections, not only in national libraries, but in other libraries, museums, archives throughout Europe, and I think that there's a massive potential to digitize that and provide access to it for citizens across Europe. And I think this project is one step towards that whole process, and we should continue working together to make this stuff happen. So I suppose my vision for the future is that the cost reductions we're seeing in storage technologies, in mass digitization processes, application development, are making it possible for us to imagine for the first time that we can really digitize the entire holdings of collections and make them available. And I think this really creates a massive opportunity for citizens across the world, actually, to learn from and build on the world's knowledge. So my concluding comments on impact in the next couple of days are that we have piles of digitized content, and we will be building on those, and there's a lot of content out there. I think we have to work together on funding, standards, copyright, technology, which is what these next 2 days I think are really all about, is to continue that discussion, that debate. And I think that this project Impact and other projects around Europe are doing an awful lot to improve the access to our collections, and we should continue to press those. And then I think that people will see the huge value that we have and that we are creating with these projects. And so together, and I think this is the big message, is together we will be able to unleash these resources. And I think Impact is a fantastic example of this collaboration. Thank you.
Richard has kept time so beautifully. Maybe there's time for a couple of questions here.
Any print people?
Ah.
Sorry, I injured myself running a few weeks ago, so my voice isn't quite as strong as normal. I'm with huge support for digitisation. My name is Richard Heaton. You wouldn't, unless you're in certain circles, you wouldn't know who I am. Is there the flip side of digitisation? What is there? Is there any national material not held at the British Library, for example, so that as you digitalise, other collections don't dispose of their content, assuming it's digitalised and available, which is... Oh, sorry, thank you. Sorry, I'll start again. Apologies. My name is Richard Heaton. I'm a huge supporter of digitisation. I actually lecture on it and try to teach people how to find information, amongst other things. I'm also, I should say, a collector of material. I've got one of the largest private collections of material, 18th and 19th century. So I do have a kind of vested interest. That's why I'm here. Very, very quickly, however, it's really about how do we protect original material that's outside of the British Library, that may be the second copy or third copy after one copy is digitised, or don't we really mind?
Yeah, that's a very, very tricky question for me to answer, I guess, because my focus is really on the British Library, clearly, because I work here. I think, you know, the cost of storing things is a huge problem, and it's a continuing problem for us. We are building, even as I speak, we're trying to build a new building for our newspaper collection, for example. And so when I look at the costs, it's probably going to cost us around 25, 30 million pounds to put that building together. And move the collection from where it is in Colindale up to Yorkshire. And so, you know, I can't get away from the fact that physical preservation of these collections is very expensive. And so in many ways, I think that what the avenue that digitization affords you is being able to store that content in lower cost environment, digitize it and provide access to it through a digital form versus through the original physical form, if possible. Now, that's not solving the cost equation, I acknowledge, but it does seem to me that you end up with a much, much better result if you're capable of doing that and you have the funding to do that. But I acknowledge, you know, the funding issue is huge and will continue to be a big problem, not just for us here at the library, but for all libraries and archives and museums across Europe.